brominated vegetable oil, potassium bromate, propylparaben, titanium dioxide, and then red 40, yellow 6, green 3, blue 1, blue 2. Okay, these are clearly not foods.
Let's get caffeinated.
I'm your host, Cassie Clayton, and you are on Coffee and Calculated Curiosity. This is 52 bills, and we are on week 4, so let's sip in. Today, we are looking at a Michigan House bill that has passed out of the House into the Senate. Why don't we have this yet? We should be banning these ingredients. We should be banning these additives and chemicals. So let's read it live together. Right? I've gone straight to Digital Democracy Project and input the bill. I want to find out where we are on the bill status, because I know that it's been passed out of the House in 2025. It was introduced, it was passed out, and then it passed through the Senate is what we have for our information. We can see there's been a lot of substitutions in this bill. So there was the introduction of the bill being passed, and then there were updates or substitutes in that bill as well. So if we go in and look at the PDF about the bill, substitute 4, this means that someone wanted to make additional changes to the bill. And we just need to see what those are, right? So this is the last bill substitute. We might want to be able to read that, but we are going to also be able to go back, see what the original was, House introduced bill from the very beginning. This bill, as we read it, we could highlight what the changes are. It's going to behoove us to actually read the past bill and the most recent substitute bill, so we know what's going on. Just at first glance, we can see here section 1, beginning July 1st, 2026. When we opened the most recent substitute bill, we see that at the beginning is July 1st, 2028. That's probably what we're going to encounter with a few of the substitutes that are in the bill, changing something such as the date to give maybe schools more time if the bill is passed. The bill sponsors could have heard from people who weren't ready to pass the bill yet, and they might have said, schools won't have enough time to implement this if we pass it in 2026 and expect them to do it in 3 months. Let's get into this full substitute for House Bill number 4369. A bill to amend 2000 PA 92 entitled Food Law. And this is in Michigan law, and they're wanting to add this section. The people of the state of Michigan enact section 7134, beginning July 1st, 2028. A food establishment distributor that distributes, sells, or otherwise provides food to a school for use in a school meal program established under section 1272A of the Revised School Code 1976 PA 451. We can go look that up. or for any use in any other school meal program that serves breakfast or lunch to students, shall not distribute, sell, or otherwise provide a food that contains any of the following: brominated vegetable oil, potassium bromate, propylparaben, or any of the following dyes: red 40, green 3, blue 1, blue 2, yellow 6. As used in this section, school means a public school or non-public school, as those terms are defined in Section 5 of the Revised School Code 1976, PA 451. And that is the end of the substitutions on the bill. Okay, so for curiosity's sake, the bill that actually passed the House was the bill for July 1st, 2028. Substitute for House Bill 4369. And what we would want to do is go and look up 2000 PA 92 entitled Food Law to Washington's legislature. This is 71 pages long, so we won't be reading through this whole document, but we can find the sections that we're looking for that pertain to this bill. So we know we want to add section 7134, 7133, and it appears that they would like to add in for 7134 to go right in here, and that would be talking about these dyes. It's amending that law to add a section 7134 so that in Michigan's public or non-public schools, and it doesn't say breakfast or lunch in this version. In this version, it's just used in this section: school means a public school or non-public school, as those terms defined in Section 5 of the Revised Code. So we could go look this up too. 1976. So if we highlight and find, what are we talking about for this Section 5, which is the one that they are referring to here when we say public or non-public school. So a non-public school, that's right here in 4, means private, denominational, or parochial school. A public school means a public elementary or secondary educational entity or agency that is established under this act or under other law of this state, has as its primary mission the teaching and learning of academic and vocational technical skills and knowledge, and is operated by a school district, intermediate school district, school of excellence corporation, public school academy corporation, strict discipline academy corporation, urban high school academy corporation, or by the department, the state board, or other public body. Public school also includes laboratory school or other elementary or secondary school that is controlled and operated by a state public university described in Section 4, 5, or 6 of Article 8 of the state constitution from 1963. So when this bill is talking about which schools would be impacted by this ingredient list change, those are the ones that it means. And when would the impact take effect? Beginning July 1st, 2028. Propylparaben. Propylparaben. Should we find out what it is? It's widely used antimicrobial preservative in cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and foods to prevent mold and bacteria growth. maybe. Ooh, propylparaben is effectively banned as a food additive in the European Union since 2006 due to concerns about its potential to disrupt hormones. Well, the European Food Safety Authority did not find a safe limit for this ingredient. So it is heavily restricted in Europe. And now it is 20 years later, and the US is finally considering banning propylparaben from food served to children at a public or non-public school. We can also look at how many other countries have banned these. We'll pull some data, but some of these are banned in over 30 nations, most notably 27 nations across the EU, restricted in Japan, banned in certain child-specific products in Denmark, facing restrictions in Canada, Australia, New Zealand. This is not banned federally yet, but there are more state restrictions that have taken place. California has actually already banned this additive and a few other additives. Where they have banned it, the California Food Safety Act prohibits the manufacturing, distribution, and sale of food and beverages that contain brominated vegetable oil, potassium bromate, propylparaben, and red dye 3. These are things that certain states have taken their state rights and put into law to remove these ingredients from certain foods or certain in certain places. There are 3 states that have banned propylparaben: California, West Virginia, and Utah. California put it into law in 2023, and it goes into effect in 2027. So it gave it some time to make this happen. Virginia passed it in 2025, goes into effect in 2027. Utah passed it in 2004. Let's find out when it goes into effect, shall we? Okay, Utah code. Effective date. Oh, wow. They were fast. May 7th, 2025. And the bill was amended just in February of 2025. And it was signed in March 2025, and it is effective. And it was effective as of May 2025. They were ready to get it done. You can look into each of these individual ingredients if you would like and continue down this same path. So where is this bill now? When we go to the Michigan State Legislature, we can review this bill and the history and timeline of the bill. So we can find out where it is at the moment. And it was passed by the House with immediate effect, and now it is being referred to the Committee on Education. So that would mean it's moving from being in the House over to the Senate. So let's take a look at the Committee on Education in the Michigan State Legislature. We could even see if they're looking at this bill, which is 4369. It was referred last summer. It hasn't been re-referred like this year. The bill's below. So it may be stuck. And it can't pass out of the Senate until it passes out of the Committee on Education. We'll have to see what happens. What we're going to do next is go into Digital Democracy Project. How can you find this? If you go into Digital Democracy Project, go to bills, and we know that this is a Michigan bill. We also have the number for it, which is 4369. So we can type in 4369, and the bill is going to pop right up for us. So let's jump right into the Kialo discussion within Digital Democracy Project and talk about what are the pros and cons about this bill. Right? It's got some words in it for ingredients in children's meals that we can hardly pronounce. And maybe we want to take a look at what would be a pro of taking this out of kids' food at school, and maybe what would that cost us. So, on the pros list, encourages schools to focus on healthier options, fostering a culture of health and well-being in educational environments. Ensures that students have access to safe and nutritious foods, potentially decreasing cases of food-related illnesses. Okay. Promotes healthier meals in schools, which can lead to improved health outcomes and reduced childhood obesity among students. So those are some of the pros that are listed. What might be the cost of something like this? Parents and students may resist changes, especially if meal options differ greatly from current preferences and cultural food habits. Both of these are important things to talk about. If your kiddo only eats certain things at school or has become used to eating certain things at school, and all of a sudden those are no longer available, that might cause a parent hesitation on wanting to support this bill. If there are cultural food habits that we don't know what those are, let's say someone always wanted to have Cookie Monster Blue cookies or Cookie Monster Blue cupcakes for a birthday. But that blue happens to be one of the blues that happens to be prohibited, maybe blue 1 or blue 2, in the new state bill. So then that would be differing greatly from a cultural norm. They'd have to find a different, they would have to find a different way to celebrate. Schools may face logistical challenges in sourcing compliant ingredients, potentially disrupting established supply chains. Now, opposite of what Utah did in moving their bill pretty quickly, this bill is still not passed yet. It's 2026, and it would allow for 2 years to take effect. Implementing new guidelines may increase food costs, leading to higher financial burdens on school districts already struggling with budget constraints. So let's talk about this, because this applies to both public and private schools. And if we make a change for public schools, that requires public money. Public money comes from taxes. So in passing this bill, there may or may not be an increase in taxes to ensure food can be obtained and acquired that does not have these ingredients, that is compliant to the new laws. This will, in fact, push on distributors to change things. This would push on manufacturers to change what are in their products. Say Fruit Loops. Let's say Fruit Loops is one of those main things that the Michigan schools have been serving for breakfast for kiddos. And Fruit Loops has a specific brand manufacturer. They have specific ingredients within those Fruit Loops. And if the Michigan schools were going to continue to serve a Fruit Loop, they would have to be free of these different dyes and ingredients. So then Michigan State would either have to find a new manufacturer for Fruit Loops, or Kellogg's Fruit Loops would have to change their recipe. So this certainly puts pressure on consumer brands, on manufacturers to make some changes within their own products if they still want to be able to be distributed and used or sold in Michigan public or non-public schools. So those are some of the whys and maybe why nots that we would be talking about here for this bill. You know what time it is. It is a VoteBot time. So let's get into it. Okay, VoteBot. I want to email my senators and the governor. Let's go big this time. About HB 4369. Provide a support, oppose, and neutral statement I could use once I decide my stance. Well, it provided me just a very generic support, oppose, and neutral statement, so maybe I need to be more specific with VoteBot. Our statements here that we can take back, if you are a Michigan resident, that you could take back to your senators and the governor. Here are some examples. Support statement. I support HB 4369 because it prioritizes the health and safety of students by prohibiting harmful chemicals and additives in school meals, ensuring that children are provided with healthier food options during their formative years. I oppose HB 4369 because it may place an additional financial burden on school districts, which could struggle to source alternative foods that meet the new requirements without sufficient increases to their food service budgets. How much more expensive is it going to be? If they don't get a new food budget, does that mean they are going to cut the amount of food that's available? Something to ask, to make sure of. Will the amount of food available to kiddos remain the same? Will it decrease? Will there be a cost to kids to be able to access more food or food in general? Maybe those are some things we want to know. These are just some examples of a way that you could structure a response to go back to your senators, to go back to your governor. And if you don't live in the state of Michigan, that's okay. You could actually take this type of a bill and language and send it to your senator in your state or your House rep in your state and say, I would love for us to have something like this. Look, California, Utah, they've already done it. Michigan is working on it. Let's be the next one. Why don't we have this yet? And make a change in your state. Wouldn't that be cool? Okay, so how do we find out who we need to contact? You know what I'm going to tell you. We're going over to Ballot Ready. So the Michigan State Senator would be specific to your legislative district there in Michigan. So this is from the Senate, the Michigan Senate, the government specific website. And here we can see the legislative districts. And there are 38. So within Michigan, we can see what those look like. So we would either need to know what district we live in, or we can add in our address and we'll just make one up for the state of Michigan. We would need to know that to know our legislative district so we could reach out to the correct senator. Grand Rapids, Michigan, a beautiful town. Look at how pretty this is. Let's find the address for Grand Rapids. There's a sculpture park, where to eat, the old goat. Let's find some directions. We're going to grab an address and we're going to add that in here. So for Grand Rapids, Michigan, we've put in the zip code and now we're going to meet our representatives. There are our Senate for the US, our representatives for the Senate. Then we should be able to go in and find our Michigan State Senate and district. So we will find State Senate. This district that we put in, this one's District 29. It would be really fun if we go back, we can go look at that map. Which one did we snag? Where is our 29th district? Can you find it on the map? There it is. Super tiny, right here. Shows up really tiny, probably has a very large population. That's why it's a smaller area on the map because of the amount of people that are in it. Okay, so now we know who this person is that we need to reach out to. Winnie Brinks. If we lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan, our Michigan State Senator is Winnie Brinks, and we would contact them. And there's here we already have an email address, and that's who we would start to put in our specific message on. Do we support? Do we oppose? Are we neutral on this topic? What does it need to be? Now, since I don't live in the state of Michigan, I shouldn't send Winnie Brinks an email about this, and I shouldn't then send her Governor Whitmer an email on this either because I don't live there. But what I could do for my state is send my senators and my House rep an email saying, this looks like a great bill. Do we have legislation about this already? And then I would be able to move the democracy process forward from there. So that's the bill, and that is democracy in action. As we see today in week 4 of 52 bills, policy shows up in our classrooms, in our cafeterias, and in our vending machines, not just in our courtrooms. And the type of additives and chemicals that we allow to be in our public and non-public schools is something that we have the power to influence and the power to shift. So thank you for taking a sip with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, stay involved. Democracy is something that we do together, whether online or in real time, whatever phase a bill is in. We don't give up. I'll see you next time.